Yeah. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gameweek 35 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Late Riser. How's it going, buddy?
Going all right, not too bad. Barely any season left, so I don't know how long this pod is going to be because I think there's just not too much to discuss now. Because I think you know where to go, and the chips have fallen. We have the double game week news as well in terms of Man City having the double in 36 now. So yeah, just waiting for the season to. It's been quite an exhausting season. I've been discussing with a few people, especially for us as content creators as well. Like I am in need for a break now, so I am feeling right at the saturation point in terms of how much, because it's been week after week after week after week of double game week news and applying your brain again. It's not been as relaxed as a usual FPL season. So yeah, uh, heading towards the end and looking forward to the break.
Yep. Disappointing game week overall. Chelsea promised a lot, didn't it? I wanted to ask you, what were your feelings like every time, as somebody who triple Chelsea and a United fan, every time the ball was being thrown into the box? What were your feelings like?
So before the game you think, okay, I don't mind the goals, etc. as well. And honest feelings, I was cheering for a United goal always, first and foremost, because it helped me from an FPL point of view as well, because I had Werner captain, I had Kai, and I had James. So in my head, most people went Kai or Mount captain. So I thought I was definitely losing ground if Chelsea kept a clean sheet. So that was something that aligned with my feelings. And I mean, there wasn't anything to cheer for. We got the ball close to the net maybe 2 or 3 times. It was a case of defense versus attack the entire game. So while you guys were attacking, the only thought in my head is, if somebody's going to score, I hope it's not Mount. I hope it's not Alonso. That's what was going on in my
You're
head.
just sucking the ball, and every time James was crossing it, you were just, please go it, please go it.
Yes. It was template. Literally, this pattern of play must have happened 10 times. You'll play around with the ball a little bit in the middle. The ball goes to Rudiger, crossfield pass straight to James. James plays around a little bit with Mount, and one of them cross it in. That's literally what happened all game, and we couldn't do anything to stop it. The slight change that Rannick made in the second half was put Alanga on that side because Rashford had no interest at all in tracking back. And so yeah, that's that. United is just going to be something we're going to be discussing next season. Hopefully, it's a lot better than how things have been this season. I do want to give credit to a certain Cristiano Ronaldo, though. He's looking on it. He's by far looking like our best player. In addition to David De Gea in the last month or so, like there's a sheer difference in quality. You can see it between him and everybody else, even though he's 36, 37. So shout out to him. He's looking really good.
That's prime age, anyway.
Yep. I want to dedicate this episode to our friend Big Man Bucker, because I did manage to get a 69 -4, but I thought it was something worth mentioning. And even though Chelsea didn't come through, I managed to hold rank. And I think it's important to realize that things could have gone on a lot worse, and it's cool and good at this stage to hold rank as well. And
The numbers were there. We put ourselves in a position to get lucky, and just the cards did not fall in our favor. Cool. Let's get started.
cool.
To our sponsor video. DreamSetGo is India's first sports travel and experiences platform, offering a range of premium end-to-end authentic experiences across football, cricket, tennis, F1, rugby and golf, among others. From matchday hospitality to VIP stadium tours, from private meet and greets with athletes and legends to exclusive access to their training sessions, DreamSetGo curates the most fulfilling sports travel packages for fans like you.
All the stats that you see on our podcast are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you aren't a member already, please click on the link in the description below and become a member. Right, Zoph, let's get into it. You want to just update everybody in terms of what's happening now?
The only really news that's come up this weekend is that Man City's double has now fallen in game week 36 rather than game week 37, which is, I think, good news for those who don't have a free hit available. If it was in 37, then I would think there would be much more need to bring in City players in. So let's have a look at their schedule now. They play Leeds this weekend, Madrid midweek, then Newcastle, Wolves back to back, all within a space of 3 days. And then they have West Ham, and they have a free midweek, obviously, before game week 38. So if they reach the Champions League finals, worth mentioning that the finals is a whole week after game week 38. So we would see a strong team. I would expect that week probably just to get them ready, get some rhythm going before the final. So that's where we are in terms of schedule. I'm looking forward to not having any double game week announcements for a while. I think Ben put a tweet out. It's almost 300 days now till we can expect the next double game week announcement.
He can peacefully retire now, at least for 3 or 4 months. His job for the season is done. Thanks a lot, Ben, for all your efforts, as well as Planet FPL James and what his name? There were 2 or 3 people who keep
Lego
assisting
Mane.
us. Lego Mane as well, whose charts we've been using as well. Anyhow, so you have a free hit left. How has this changed your thinking, or has it changed your thinking when you're looking to use it?
The thing is, I had actually assumed that it would go in 36, so I'm already doubled up on City with Cancelo and Edison, and I just used my wild card, right? So I actually have 12 doublers who play that week in 36, and Ketia is a 12th guy. So I'm pretty well set now. 37 is probably when I'd free hit, but after seeing to what happened to people this week, right? We were talking to Baker. He ended up selling on free hit the likes of Robertson, the likes of Saka. We saw Mark Southerns and Az also doing similar. Mark had Pope and stuff like that. So it's very easy to lose points in a free hit also. Like, so you have to be very careful in 37. So in 37, I don't think I'm going to be going too heavy on these double game week teams. Probably one guy from Everton. Villa, I might go still 3. Probably just Zaha, and the rest are going to be mostly like normal guys.
Yeah, same. I'm in the same situation as you. I have a free hit chip left, and I don't really know where to use it. I'd be very comfortable not having a free hit chip right until the end of the season and see the season out. I don't think you really need it. You're spot on in the term saying that, if the double fell in 36, you don't really need a free hit chip, because the popular teams have good fixtures in 37 anyway, and you can just get in a captain if you wish to from a Villa or an Everton for that week. That's about it.
Let's talk first about Chelsea before we jump into this discussion now. There's some comments that Tuchel made after the game. LR, do you have those handy?
Yes, I'll just read out the comments for you. This is what he said. On Kai Havertz, this is what he had to say. He needs to fight back into his shape. The guys are still young up front, and we will not start pointing fingers. At Southampton and at the Bernabeu, we took our chances. So when we look at the data, there is a huge amount of intensity from Kai and Timo. So they don't arrive fully fresh in these moments. What does it tell you, Zoph?
It tells me that Havertz is getting benched this weekend, and probably Timo too.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame Tuchel for doing that. Havertz had so many good chances that he had a 0.93 xG in the first half alone.
He's the reason why Reece James doesn't have a 20-pointer from last night, in my opinion. Like, so many chances, so much teasing. So yeah, that's where I'm looking at in terms of what to do this week. It's risky, but I think there are teams to target, and I think the right time to target these teams is this week. And I'm okay to sell my Chelsea assets. I'm looking to sell both Werner and Havertz this week, and because I prefer the other teams right from 35 to 38 for the run-in. So that's where I am. Are you looking to do similar?
Yep, but let's talk about all the Chelsea assets from back to front. I think in defense, whoever you have, you probably stick with, whether it be Rudiger, James, or Alonso. In midfield, I think Mount was still impressive, and he played 90 minutes in both games. I think Mount still plays against Everton. I don't think necessarily Ziyech comes in. We need Mount, especially without Kovacic, for that ball progression in midfield. So I'm fairly confident he stays in. Kai, I don't think he starts. You're risking a 1-pointer over there. And at this stage of the season, I don't think you take that risk, because what I was thinking in my head initially is I really wanted to save a transfer this week, especially with City's double falling in 36, because I'm uncertain how to attack that double. I'm uncertain whether I want to sell Son to KDB, but that how sort of Spurs play against Leicester might change my opinion. I want to see who City bench, etc. So if Foden is, for example, benched against Leeds, I feel much more confident in Foden for 36. So I kind of wanted to save this week, but I don't think I can accept like what I know is going to be a one pointer at this stage of the season.
Yep. Agreed. I think you just attack. I think you roll the dice on the fixture. The Leeds game can go. We'll talk about that. I think it'll be the first time we'll discuss 35 in detail in terms of where we're expecting and how we're expecting the games to play out. But I'm in agreement with everything you say. If you have the defenders, it's difficult to sell them, and especially because of the games in 37 and 38. Tell me about the turnaround in 37 with the FA Cup final. What's the schedule like then
So we play
for Chelsea?
on Sunday. Sorry, Saturday is the FA Cup final, and then we play Leicester on the Wednesday, and then the Sunday is the last game of the season.
Got it. So it shouldn't be too heavy in terms of rotation, you think?
It depends on the points really. What could happen now? Let's say Spurs drop points. Let's say both to Arsenal and Liverpool in the top four races. Virtually, not virtually. It is mathematically done. Arsenal would have qualified. We would have also not sealed third, but would have sealed fourth. So that 37 fixture might be become a dead rubber. In which case we rotate, play the guys who missed the FA Cup final in 37, play the strongest guys in 38, or just do a mixed sprinkling of both. But then somebody like a Reece James, who's most likely going to play in the final and all that stuff, I don't think he'll necessarily risk him midweek and the weekend. He'd probably
Got it.
rest him in that 37 fixture. So 37 is also a bit of a rotation minefield, I think, for Chelsea.
Fair enough. All right. So which team do you want to talk about now?
So I think before we discuss the teams, I think it's very necessary now if you have a free hit in hand to decide which week you're going to free hit, and I think that will determine your transfer strategy. And I know, Pranil, we were discussing this yesterday. For example, you were suggesting bringing in somebody from Aston Villa, primarily because, like, you're looking to free hit in 36. And I like the idea because I like the 35 fixture. I don't like the 36 double in particular. Burnley have been a lot better. Liverpool, we've seen how Villa are in these big games. So, but then you land up in 37 with Palace and Burnley, which is much better. Same thing, you were also planning to bring in Kane. And the same logic applies. The double in 36 isn't as great, but then the 37, 38 fixtures are fantastic.
Correct. And just want to tune back a little to this perception that the double for Spurs isn't great in 36. I don't agree with that. I think, in fact, the Spurs premium assets could potentially probably be more reliable than assets from City or Chelsea, for example, because what you're going to get with Kane and Son, given the fixtures and given that they have so much time and so much break, is 180 minutes. In case Son gets one early sub, Kane doesn't get subbed, you're going to get 170 minutes guaranteed from premium attackers. Now, the Arsenal game, they don't have their first choice wing backs playing for them. I think there could be potentially goals in that game, So that is a good fixture for your Spurs attackers. And I think Liverpool are the kind of team that Spurs actually might enjoy playing more than teams like Brighton or Brentford, who are going to sit back and uh, Spurs. What is the forte for Spurs at the moment, right? Because they're not having so much control in a game. The forte for them is counter attacking football, and I think Liverpool's high line might facilitate a little more attacking impetus from Spurs. So there is this mindset when you were talking about making the shift from Son to KDP. If I'm thinking about free hit 36, Son is there in my free hit team for 36. I think he's that good and that important and that good an asset for free hit 36. So there is a perception where you don't need Spurs assets in 36. I think you need Spurs assets in 36. I think outside of a KDB and a Mo Salah, I think Kane and Son would be after that in my ranking, and I wouldn't even hesitate to maybe have a Son at par with a KDB in Game Week 36 because you're guaranteed minutes. As simple as that.
And just having a look at City's double again, I don't think it's the best double. I know because they're Man City, but Newcastle, they're a very good team defensively. Now we'll have a look at the numbers later. Wolves away, they're going to be very negative, and there's no Adama Traore, in fact, even this time, who usually terrorizes them. So I think.
And
go ahead.
And what can happen with City? Let's say you're plumping on City. You're putting yourself in a position to get lucky. That's what a lot of free hitters did in 34 as well. And, it's fine margins because a lot of people punted on Raheem Sterling. Now, if you think about all the 4 or 5 goal involvements that Gabriel Jesus had, Sterling was literally 2 or 3 yards away from Gabriel Jesus. So it was literally happenstance that Sterling, the chances didn't fall to Sterling and they happened to fall to Gabby J. And on another day, it's going to fall to the other player. But that's what's going to happen with City in terms of reliability and predictability as well. If City will score 6 goals, let's say over double game week 36, the odds of the predictability in terms of who is going to get the haul is much lower than, let's say, Spurs getting 3 goals over game week 36. But if you know that Spurs are scoring 3 goals, odds on you're getting 2 returns at least from either Son or Kane. That also is a factor because of goal involvement and predictability and patterns of play. So yeah.
So let's just move at the look at the fixtures now for this week, and we can talk. First up, I think let's talk about Newcastle Liverpool being at the early kickoff.
I do want to talk a little bit big picture. I think
ahead.
we'll move on to that. If you can move to the Lego Mane fixture ticker as well, because there's a little bit of discussion to be
Sure.
had here in terms of some people are still struggling when to free hit, etc. I think to break down this decision making, at least for me, and I think it might help other people in the process as well. I think there are 3 teams to target this week. Assuming all of us have 3 Liverpool, I think there are 3 teams to target this week. Man City, because they play Leeds away. There's Aston Villa, because they play Norwich at home. And there is Spurs, because they play Leicester at home, either side of a Europa League tie. Oh, I am not aware of the Europa League results at all.
1-1.
What happened?
1-1 for Leicester. They were much the dominant team. I think Roma just got 1 goal and West Ham 1-2 down.
Oh, okay. All right. So
both the ties are alive.
Both the ties are alive. Definite rotation for both West Ham and Leicester. Both of them are going to play the weaker team. So I want to talk about these 3 teams and their fixtures first.
And even Arsenal. So even Arsenal becomes one to add to that.
Yeah, Arsenal becomes a team to target as well, yes. Because they have a decent looking game week 36, in my opinion. So what happens now is, if you go in the direction towards getting City players in 35, I think it's very likely that you're free hitting in game week 36, because then I think the gap that people have in their team is probably a lack of City players at the moment, and that's where they will direct their transfers. So if you don't own any players from Everton or Aston Villa at the moment, it might be a good time to attack City or Spurs players, so that you can free hit in game week 37. I think it's good to have Spurs players in game week 36 as well. And conversely, if in my position, like I own Richarlison and Gordon, if you own players in that, and if you want to attack Spurs and if you want to attack Aston Villa this week, because Aston Villa have a great prime fixture, Norwich at City at home, it's more likely that you probably free hit in game week 36 or 38. I haven't ruled out free hitting in game week 38, but I think if you buy Aston Villa this week, you're ruling out a free hit 37. That's where I am in terms of which way you go and what happens in terms of when you're free hitting later.
I partially agree, but not entirely about the Villa thing on 37, because like you said, I might bring in Coutinho still. We can still free hit because there are still 4 or 5 other players, and at this point it becomes like, I wish I would use my free hit in one of the blanks earlier, but then it's come to the point you have to use it now. So I still see more upside in 37 than 38, just because again, I'm going to use Hibbo's favorite phrase, team dependent, but that's how it is. Like at your team, it makes more sense because you have the Everton lads.
And it's bizarre we are saying that, because as things stand, I have 13 double game weekers for 36. But it's about cherry picking which ones you want.
It's a luxury.
And it's difficult. And
the free hit is a luxury.
I don't want to get suckered into, which is what happened to a lot of people. They sold Saka in 34. I don't want to get suckered into doing something like that just because I own a player and want to get a new toy on my free hit team. That's something that's going to be on my mind as well. I think a lot of this is going to come down to which set of fixtures you prefer in 35 and 38, because I think you can either move for a KDB or a Kane and Son this week, let's say, for people that are definitely free hitting in 37. Now, over 35, 36, and 38, between City and Spurs, if you had to pick a premium big hitter, which way would you lean right now? Because I think that's a little bit of a debate. And I think a lot of people are instantly leaning towards Manchester City. I don't quite know if that's the case, because I think Leicester at home is a great fixture for Spurs. I think Norwich City away in 38 is also a prime fixture.
That's the best fixture. I think in 38 that has that if you ask me a final day fixture, there's going to be like a tennis score 6-2, 6-3 sort of thing. That's a fixture that looks like it to me.
Exactly. And I think more and more Norwich are resigned to their fate, which is going to happen. More and more shoulders are going to drop. They're not going to have much to play for. Their anyway, they've been sitting on top of the XGC chart in terms of being the worst in the league for all season. And any time in the last 2 or 3 months when I've looked at XGC, last 6 matches, Norwich have been up there and are still up there. So that's the thinking in my head. Versus what you have for Manchester City is Leeds United away, and then Aston Villa at home in game week 38. Now, but it's interesting if it's Aston Villa at home in 38. Just again, narrative. If
Gerrard.
both teams are tied still on points and Gerrard wins the title for, I mean, that's something. But you'd expect a little bit of that factor coming into. And what I've seen from experience as a United fan in the past is these game week 38 ties. If a title is on the line, it's a very nervous energy. I don't see 4-0 final kind of scores. It's very, if you're winning 1 or 2-0, you're going to protect a little. It's not going to be hammer and song and go for the kill. That's what my thinking is. So where do you lean?
Yeah,
And
that's
especially for free hit 37ers, do you go Kane, Son, or KDB?
so much to unpack over there. Where shall we start? I think first let's talk about just touch upon City as a team in general about their attackers. I think KDB is on another tier altogether, but the question I still ask myself, even if I free hit KDB in 36, I would still captain Salah. Wouldn't you?
Yep. Yeah, as things stand. How much is the duration between the FA Cup and the second tie of the 36 game for Liverpool?
Let's go back over here. So you're talking about the Saturday. That's right after Aston Villa, right? I think it's probably, I think it says yellow, so 3 days.
3 days. All right, that's not too bad. And Salah's going to play irrespective. So yeah, I'd probably still captain Mo Salah.
So I don't think necessarily you need to fall over yourself. Like, a lot of people are talking about breaking the teams apart from Kevin and even free hitting primarily just to get KDB in. I mean, famous last words, but I don't think it's necessarily just, it's again very team dependent when you free hit. But let's, again, going back to Man City, let's talk about the other mids about to target this week. Luke did a great pod on this. I listened to a bit of it, and he says the same thing that between around Champions League ties is very difficult to be sure. Like, he would have expected somebody like a Foden to play this game, but this week you cannot be sure.
But this is the only midweek that they really have in terms of Champions League now, right? That's the only thing. They don't have the FA Cup. So I don't think the fixtures, as just because there's no FA Cup final, which is an extra game that Liverpool have, I think this sort of plays into City's hands because, and also the schedule this week, like you mentioned, it's the schedule that favors Manchester City in terms of it not being a Wednesday Tuesday, it being a Tuesday Wednesday as well. So I don't know how much rotation we see. I'm expecting KDB to start. It's just managed minutes. That's about it.
Yeah. So in terms
Yeah.
of Havertz, I think we should talk about Havertz primarily in terms of exit routes. I think the best players I can think of at a similar price are probably Coutinho and Foden.
Yep. Agreed.
Who would you? Let's have a quick look at Villa's numbers over the last 6 matches. Watkins is top for expected goal involvement at 2.77. Ings Bailey 1 point around. Coutinho 1.62 with only 4 shots in the box in the last 6 matches, but 10 chances created. But it's similar to what we saw the last time around in 28. He's getting into the box still.
Yeah, he's getting into this box. And I was reading that Stevie I Test FPL did a really good article on FF Scout as well, where he spoke about the Aston Villa assets. And even Tom Freeman, who was on the pod last week, he mentioned that Villa are a little bit of a home team and a flat track bully. And Gerrard's also mentioned this in his press conferences. And I remember many Gerrard quotes where he's saying that they tend to struggle against teams that are better to them. And that's what they've been playing in the last 4 or 5 weeks. There are 2 or 3 factors in play. First of all, they've been massively underperforming their XG as well by a distance. That said, they are still 14th for XG in the last few games. But this stat slot where they tend to do a lot better, Coutinho tends to do a lot better when they have the ball against teams that are on par or inferior to them. This stat from iTest FPL was Coutinho's number of touches in the penalty box doubles when you're filtering versus top 10 and bottom 10, and the number of shots triples. So that's the kind of chance that you take. And in my head, stats aside, I think there's enough quality in that Villa team to score 3 or 4 past a Norwich City. I think just because the quality of the players on that team, I wouldn't be confident of somebody else who doesn't have these big players playing for their team. So that's where I am when it comes to Aston Villa. I have no comms, despite their poor show of form, uh, punting on Aston Villa because the fixtures are there. As simple as that.
They're about 12th for non-penalty XG over the last 6 matches, 7.45, which is about the same as West Ham, Newcastle teams
Yeah.
around there, which is still decent. Burnley have
The
shot
thing with
way up. I love seeing Burnley on the 7th now.
Yep. So yeah, the thinking is also one other point that I want to make here is that if you're going big on Aston Villa, be careful in terms of how many assets you get, because it's good to be mindful that in 38 they play Manchester City away. So make sure your 38 team doesn't get compromised too much and you're not getting in too many Aston Villa.
That's my main
But
concern with Coutinho.
yeah,
Do you think he gets rotated at all?
I don't know. I don't know because it's a tough schedule, etc. as well. But they haven't really played too much, and I don't know how much rotation would happen at the end of the season. The worry is that if he plays that Liverpool game, then he misses out one of the two in the stronger double, which is in 37. So that's where the thing is. But we're far from that. We won't know until we know when we're closer. And also the thing with Villa is they do have substitutable players who could play in his position. I mean, Bundia is sitting there; he can do similar things to what Coutinho does as well. So he could very much play one of those games. It is a little bit of a punt, but the thing is that if you bring in Coutinho now, he's a great asset for 35 also. That's the thing.
That's a big thing. I would say 35 is his probably best fixture because I saw bits of Norwich against Newcastle and now they have no choice but to absolutely go for it. There's no point turning up and trying to park the bus, grind out a 1-0. They're going to
yeah,
go for it and open up even more once Villa score. So there are definitely
yeah,
points there.
yeah. Always been a fixture to target. What do you think about? A lot of people have been talking about. So I think Cash and Coutinho are good picks. You don't need to worry about that too much. But where are you in terms of Ollie Watkins and people looking for a striker?
I don't mind Watkins at all. He's quite maligned, but I think he's safest for minutes, probably Villa. So I think he's still on penalties.
Yes, I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I think he's
Yeah.
on penalties.
I don't mind him as
Yeah,
a pick at all.
yeah. The thing is, he's one of those picks that's reliable and is going to get you minutes because again he's a fitness beast as well. So in this fixture crunch where they have a double, I think expect Watkins to play most of the minutes. The only thing is he's a little underwhelming, a little bit meh in terms of the quality of the player and his finishing ability. Like I know for a fact that Watkins needs 3 or 4 chances to put one in. That's the thing with Watkins that's in my head. I don't think he's actually explosive, but also at that price point, there's no one really. Who are you competing with? You're competing with Richarlison and Pookie
And
at that
Nketiah.
price point, and Ketia at that price point. So, because of the reliability factor and the fixtures, he could explode. You could find a day where he puts in 2 out of the 3 chances that he gets back at the back of the net, and you're in business. As simple.
Should we jump back to the fixtures for this week? That will help probably structure. My thoughts are a bit all over the place now in terms of like
Cool.
the fleet and all that stuff. Maybe that will help structure. Let's talk first captaincy for this week. And I think the first fixture first up is Newcastle Liverpool. The early kickoff. We'll probably get some inkling of the lineups before kickoff, usually do with Liverpool. But I think Salah starts either way. Do you think it's a good fixture for Liverpool?
No, I think it's a tough fixture for Liverpool. I'm not going to be captaining Mo Salah as things stand. Unless I decide to play very defensive and hold my Chelsea assets. I'm looking to bring in a captain this week, and that's why I'm leaning towards probably getting in a Spurs or a. I think Spurs are one of the best captaincy options this week. I am not confident captaining a Mo Salah this week. What about you?
Yep. I don't like it. Newcastle's home form has been great. I think they've won 6 of the last 4 matches, or they've not at least not dropped points in them. They've been a lot tighter defensively. Very short turnaround for Liverpool as well. And I know Salah got good points against United, but I think his role has been slightly wider with Mane playing centre forward and Luis Diaz on the side. He's not possibly getting into central areas as much. I'm in no way saying that Mo Salah is a bad asset or you should sell him, but I think his appeal is just reduced a tiny bit with Mane playing that centre forward role.
Yeah. No, I mean, Salah is going to be my captain in 36, very, very likely. But just not confident, not feeling it. And I think Newcastle's a tough tie as they've shown uh, in the past. And I think there are better options to go for this week.
That's the
That
main thing.
said, if at all you're a conservative manager and don't want to think twice, I'm never against captaining Mo Salah just But I do think that if Liverpool are leading 2-0, let's say for example, minutes might be managed because he was the only attacker that got 90 in the UCL tie as well. And I think 2-0 is something that Klopp can't take for granted yet. So
Agree.
that's where I'm. I
Move
don't
on.
mind it though. I don't mind it. If somebody's saying no, I don't buy it, and I still want to captain Mo Salah, he's the best FPL pick in the game by a distance. So I don't mind it. I don't want to say that. I don't want to discourage people. I am personally thinking there are better opportunities.
An agreement. Villa,
Yeah.
Norwich, we've already touched upon. Anything more to add here?
No. Do you think the captaincy options though?
Yes, why not? I think I like Coutinho, especially Watkins, not so much. He's more of a steady Eddie. Usually gets one
Hmm.
return. But in terms of explosive potential, Coutinho is up there.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because point of the season, if you look to make up ground, I think Coutinho is somebody you can look at. Southampton Palace is something is interesting. Zaha had something like 5 shots on target against Leeds. And like you were mentioning, if you're going to free hit in 36, I think he's a great player to bring in this week.
Agreed. Agreed. And they face United in 38 as well, who are not doing very well defensively. You saw the game. So, and Zaha has a little bit of history with United, and he will want to show up also in that game. So, yeah, no, not against Zaha. He's a decent buy right now. I just prefer Coutinho to him as a pick, though. Where are you in terms of that?
Yeah, because I do think Coutinho is more, but again, depends completely on your chip strategy. If you're going free hit on 36, I like Zaha a bit more than Coutinho. Because
Yeah.
38, like
The
you said,
advantage,
38 comes into it as well.
yeah, 38, Zaha does have the better fixture compared to Coutinho. That's also an important. I do want to. I think this Crystal Palace Leeds game that you mentioned does segue into a little bit of Manchester City conversation because Leeds have tightened up in terms of how they've been playing off late. And yesterday while I was doing a little bit of tinkering, I was like, "There's an opportunity for Raheem Sterling here." I looked at the last 2 or 3 game highlights again for Manchester City, and that's where I realized that the reason Sterling got no attacking return in that game was just happenstance against Watford. He was every time the ball was crossed, he was just maybe 2 yards ahead, etc. So Sterling does have that all potential in him. And then I was talking to a good friend of mine from Nirvana, FPL Rhinos, who's a Leeds United fan, and he's like, and what's happened is I want to shout out to Ronald FPL Pick as well. He was sharing this information and post match interview with Jesse Marsh, where he's talking about the game that's going to come against Manchester City, and he's like, you know what, we have nothing to lose. We're going to go for it. We're going to play aggressive, attacking football, etc. as well. And the thought of that makes me think, oh my god, I need to get a City attacker to captain this week, and I think KDB might get managed minutes this week because if City are leading by 2 goals or 3 goals, Pep's pretty much said it as much that he's going to manage KDB's minutes, and the tie is far from over. So I was like, there's an opportunity to captain a Raheem Sterling this week, who has explosive potential. But then I was like, am I blinded by my perception of how I perceive Leeds United to be under Bielsa? How much have they tightened up? And Rhinos was like, no, we don't leave as many gaps as we did earlier. But I'm like, still, the difference in gulf in quality between a Leeds United and a Manchester City is very high. I'll pose this question to you as a standalone. Who do you prefer as the captaincy option this week, Kane or Sterling?
Kane.
You still prefer Kane to Sterling?
Not a
Yeah.
second doubt in my mind.
Because the other thing in my head is it's an away tie. It's at Ellen Road as well. And Rhinos was very honest in his feedback. He's like, I don't buy it at all. He's going to say he's going to be playing defensive
His
football.
manager
I
speak.
don't.
It's completely manager speak because the whole part of the interview is like, but we have to be careful about their quality. We have to be aggressive. It's just the usual Ted Lasso like positive speak, like that managers do. So I don't read anything into that.
Ted Lasso, you typecasted the guy. Come on, he's done well for.
I don't know. I found the
Leeds
post
United.
match very Ted Lasso, that one.
Yeah, so that's where I am because I think that also influences which way I go towards. Because which premium do you get this week? I am not there yet with captaining a Coutinho this week. So I want to captain either a Sterling or a Kane. That's where I am this week. So I think the tiebreaker is that Gameweek 38 fixture where I prefer Kane. And also there's muscle memory in my head where over the years, just Kane is a solid end of the season finisher. Like he just tends to do well. I don't know if there's any connection, etc. as well, but it's just stuck in my head that he tends to finish seasons really well. That said, do you think, let's say if Son, because Leicester is a prime fixture, let's say Son gets 2 or 3 goals in this game and he's 2 goals away from the Golden Boot because Salah's on 22. Do you think Kane gives him penalties then?
I don't know. Kane himself has his own records to chase, Shearer's record and stuff like that, and he's only played half the season, so pretty much effectively. So I think he'll want to get his own numbers up, but you never know. Could
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Another factor in my head when we're talking about, let's talk about Spurs and Leicester, is that what we've seen is that when Leicester play their B team, which is what they're going to be playing against Spurs, they don't tend to play such expansive football as well. They do tend to sit back a little and not play aggressive football. So, you know, how we're perceiving Leicester to be very open at the back and counter attacking space to be left. I don't think that's going to happen when Leicester are traveling to the Spurs stadium. And in my head, always when teams are sitting back and pinned a little, in my head, those games suit Kane more than Heung-min Son. Like if I was to pick somebody in free hit 36, where they're playing Arsenal and Liverpool, in my head, Son's a better pick, primarily because of the high line that Liverpool play in 36 compared to 35 and 37. Do you buy into that notion?
I do, and there's also Kane's historic record against Leeds. I know people say you shouldn't read too much into those
Leicester.
numbers. Sorry, Leicester, yeah. So there are historic numbers also to go into that. He does like playing them. And like you said, they can try to park the bus, but how effectively can they park the bus?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Amati and Soyuncu probably and stuff like that. Because they even had an injury in defense. I think Castagne got injured yesterday. Even at fullback, you're probably going to be seeing Thomas and maybe somebody else in makeshift. They probably won't be seeing Madison. Probably may not be even be seeing Dewsbury Hall. He's played a lot of minutes. They have to. You
And
can't risk injury to
Sumar
any
is fit
players.
now.
Sumare is fit, so they can't really risk injury to any players, and they have absolutely nothing to play for in the league.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you are confident. You're not too worried about the last 2 goals, 0 shots on target from Spurs.
They
You
played
still
very
got that.
they played very good defensive teams in Brighton and Brentford. Brentford are a very very good team now. I mean, they showed it against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and the results they've picked up of the last 3-4 games have been brilliant. Brighton too, so I wouldn't read too much into it now.
And do you have a preference in terms of where to go from now until end of the season between the two Spurs premium assets?
Marginally prefer Son because I think Son is pretty much playing as an out and out striker now. He's not looking to
Agreed.
create link up plays constantly on the last man. And Leicester are quite weak at set piece defending as well. Son takes all the corners, free kicks, and stuff like that. So there's also opportunities there. He's significantly cheaper. And you are having now a few budget striker options. Earlier, the problem was you didn't have anyone to rival Kane. Now you have somebody like Nketiah you could look at, Watkins, Richarlison, and stuff like that. So you have an alternative striker option up front.
So to our listeners, would you say go with what suits your team structure more?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's not
Yeah.
much to pick between them. There's a coin toss, but something we should answer is a lot of guys who did a 1 week punt on a City asset last week. Now, with their double now falling in 36, it becomes a tricky question whether to move to Spurs for 1 week and then move back to City or just move to Spurs, stick, etc., etc. Where are you on that?
I think if you own Raheem Sterling, you keep him. I think there's enough potential in that fixture for Sterling, and then decide what you want to do. It's one more week of seeing how Spurs have played as well, right? Because we don't know if they're going to be poor again. So I don't think you shift just yet if you want a Raheem Sterling. If you want a De Bruyne, I think you hold as well. And Foden, Mahrez, etc. I'd be okay to maybe switch. That's where I'm.
Foden switch? Really, I would like to have kept Foden for this fixture, but Sterling, I think I'm a bit mixed on that because
To a Spurs asset. I think you keep Sterling. I think he's a captaincy option this week.
you think so? I do like him a
Yeah.
bit more away games, and like we said, we're not. If you're not keen on Salah, the thing is, I'm not very keen on Sterling for 36. Right,
Yeah.
at KDB for 36, I would say move him to Sun this week and stick with Sun for 36. That's what I would go.
I think just as a standalone, I like the explosivity of Sterling this week. That's about it.
It's
And
not an
also
easy.
because
It's not an easy decision. We are quite split on that. It's not an easy decision.
my thinking is because there's a chance Spurs still continue to suck and don't really do well, right? And 0 shots on target. And City are going to dominate. And I mean, just look at the names on the back of the shirt. The quality of the players playing for Leeds United. Leeds United were a team that were punching above their weight because of the manager that they had. They don't really have that good a squad except for Calvin Phillips. They don't really have Premier League quality players. You know what I'm saying? So I think that will get found out when they play against a team like Manchester City. And I think there's much more explosive potential for a Sterling. So I think if you own a Sterling, I'm still debating because in my head 51-49 in terms of who's the better captaincy option between Kane and Sterling this week. There is a slight doubt because Sterling is not nailed on to play as well, because we saw the predictors. I was on the forums. A lot of them have Sterling starting. But I don't think rest and rotation is a factor now this week because of the Tuesday, Wednesday turnaround. And they've had 4 days since the previous game as well. So that's the slight doubt where I'm not quite as confident in buying a Sterling. But if I have him, if I had him, I'd probably captain or at least hold him if you don't want to go all the way.
I guess it depends on your risk appetite.
Yeah. And in fact, my thinking is in 36, Son is a better asset than Sterling.
That's no doubt in my mind, purely because that's when minutes become a consideration. You have the first team guys who probably jump back in the team. You have Mahrez to compete with, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think what's become now, I think this is after a long time, it's not really become about permutations and combinations and strategy. I think now in the last 3 or 4 gamings, it's coming down to these subjective notes and trying to read matchups and trying to see which game suits which player and trying to cash those halls. I think I quite enjoy that as
Actually,
an
about
FPL player.
picking players rather than racking your noodle
Exactly.
about chips and stuff.
Exactly. Cool. I think we've covered. I think also if you're in the market for a defender, Laporte is the one to go for, assuming you already own Cancelo as well. Do you agree?
So only one caveat with Laporte is we saw him getting subbed early, right? Around 60 odd minutes. And I remember this was happening with Diaz last season. And a lot of times it happened before 60. And just in case, like, if they go 3-0, 4-0 up before 60 minutes, he was being hooked. So I think that's probably the only caveat with Laporte, but I still think he's the best pick in the defense, bar Cancelo. I think Cancelo is still at level above.
Agreed. Cool. That's where I am. Reece, just again revisiting, Reece James, Alonso owners need to hold. No problems.
Absolutely. But Havertz, guys, get rid.
Werner, guys?
Get rid.
Yeah, that's where I am as well. Cool. Want to move to our teams?
Spurs, let's talk about Nketiah and West Ham a little bit. What do you think is Nketiah worth bringing in this week for somebody like a Pookie, or just in general if you need to free up money elsewhere?
Yeah. Why not? That said, if you can still go to I don't know, because the thing is he's going to get the chances. I just don't trust the player in terms of how good he is as a finisher, etc. as well. I'm not quite there with him as a finisher just yet. But if you need to free up funds, sure. But just temper your expectations. That's all.
As an owner, I'm not really sure, because even let's say I land up in 36 and he does well this game, I worry about in 36, what if he does poorly in the first game? Does he give Lacazette the Arsenal game? So the Spurs game for more experience and all that stuff. It's just a little bit dodgy.
Agree with you. Actually, if you can stretch to a Richarlison, I don't mind going for a Richarlison. Because I actually think their double in 36 also is quite underrated. They play Leicester and Watford away. I don't mind that from an attacker's point of view. And their double in 37 is gold anyway. So I don't mind going there. Not many are looking at Richarlison, but I quite like him. The problem is his fixture in 35 isn't great. So next week is the right time to go for it.
If you ignore the home away factor, I think the double is actually better in 36. Watford and Leicester are leakier than Brentford and Palace.
Exactly.
It's the home away stuff that really comes into play. United, Brentford, anything to touch upon?
I'd be, if you're not confident in terms of where to go, I'd be okay holding Ronaldo, maybe even captaining, because he's looked that sharp. But Brentford have known to be a defensively astute team now. We saw what they did against Spurs as well. They've just changed once Eriksen has joined that team. If you can make the move to Harry Kane, I'd make the move though. Because you're going to want to Harry Kane in 36, 37, 38 anyways.
Right.
And if there's anybody else other than Ronaldo, you don't even need to give it a second of thought. Get rid.
Right. I'll just do your team first. I know you wanted to spend a bit more time on it. I don't think I've loaded your team, unfortunately. I loaded the wrong slide. So I'll load it up in a second. I'll just read out. Can you see my team over here?
Yes.
Can you just read it out? In the meantime, I'll load up yours.
Sure. This is Utkarsh's team. He has Edison, Cancelo, Reece James, Trent, Robbo, Havertz, Mount, Salah, Son, who's his current cap, Saka, and Eddie Nketiah up front. On his bench, he's got Pookie and 3 duds. That's where he is at the moment.
Right.
What are you looking at?
So now, obviously, getting rid of Havertz is a priority, right? So that's what
Yeah,
I'm probably looking at. So now the thing is, I wanted to initially save a transfer. I thought I would probably do something like Havertz, Mount, and James out in 36. Probably bring in KDB, a 5.2 mid, and all that. But after what I saw from James yesterday, I think even in 38, he's a good player. Even 36, if he plays wing back, even with one fixture, I don't mind. He's a decent player. I think Mount also gets a decent number of minutes. So I think moving Havertz out this week, and I might even do Coutinho just for 1 week. Maybe look to change him to Foden next week, something like that, if I want to keep Mount, because I'm worried about 38 with Coutinho. Effectively, you're talking about like Mount might play one game, Coutinho plays 2 games in 36, but I think the 38 fixture could potentially make up for that.
agree with you.
I
Fair
al-
enough. Fair enough. And I do like the idea of chasing even 1 week hauls again,
so
because
late in
people
the
shouldn't be
season, right?
afraid so late in the season. You have very few. You need to earmark matchups that you like, and there might be 7 or 8 matchups left in the season that you really like and are worth attacking. And it's about putting yourself in a position to get lucky then.
That's right.
I'm looking to free hit in 37 comfortably.
Right. So this is your, I think you've sent me a few options over here.
Yeah, so that's I just wanted to show you my team and how it looks in game week 36 and game week 37 as well. This is my current squad. Let's look at this. This is easier. I've got Dubravka, Ramsdale, White, James, Robertson, Trent, Cancelo, Saka, Havertz.
1 second. I'm sorry.
Zoph.
It's
Okay.
automatically changing. I have to fix that once.
All right, sure.
Done.
We'll wait for a second while Zoph is doing this. There's a super chat. I'll just answer that very quickly. Guys, leave the super chats for the end. No free hit left. Have KDP. Would you swap for Son this week? Man, that honestly, this comes down to your subjective read of the situation. I wouldn't swap for Son this week. Would you swap KDP for Son this week? Zoph?
Nope, not KDB. Sterling, I would have still done it, but I don't think I would do it for
I-
KDB.
I'd be more confident of holding Sterling because I think he's the captaincy option this week. That's where I am. Have we solved our issue or is it
No,
still there?
I'm still having a tech issue with this. I can load up and just tell me which one to load. I'll load up that one first.
Just load my squad. It's easier then.
Yeah, it's easier. Just keep talking for a little bit. I'll just that.
Yeah. Kane versus Son for captaincy this week. I'll just take a couple of questions in the meantime from the chat. I think Kane is a better matchup for Leicester because of what I mentioned earlier. I expect Leicester to sit back a little. And if teams are sitting back, I don't mind Kane. But it's literally splitting hairs. Both are great, good captaincy options. I don't know. In my head, I think Kane's more reliable. That's about it. Even though Son scored 17 goals and Kane scored 12 goals this season. Right. Do we have just one image now?
Yes, I have your squad up.
Cool. I'm going to just read it out quickly. My team is Dubravka, Ramsdale, White, James, Robertson, Trent, Cancelo, Saka, Havertz, Salah, Gordon, Kulusevski, Ivan Toney, Timo Werner, and Richarlison. Now, the problem that I have in my squad is it's pretty decent for both 36 and 37 as things stand. Because as things stand, without even using a transfer, I have 13 doublers in 36, and I have Gordon, Richarlison in 37. I'm going to be playing 3 Liverpool in 37, whether I have a free hit or not. Saka is a good play, Cancelo is a good play, and Kulusevski is a good play in 37, whether I free hit or not. So it's a big dilemma in terms of where I want to use my free hit. Somebody said you could just load up on Aston Villa. I think that was Shiva from Twitter, and you could just do a roll of the dice free hit in game week 38 as well. Irrespective, I said, I mentioned earlier the teams to target this week are Villa, Spurs, and Man City. And if I get rid of my Chelsea assets and get in Sterling, who's a captaincy option this week, I probably free hit in 37 because I will not add Kane and Coutinho, who would be a part of my free hit 37 team. In 37, Spurs play Burnley at home, which is a great fixture in my opinion. Or I ignore City players, just free hit the 3 City players I want in game week 36 and get in Kane and Coutinho this week for a -8. What I'm doing by getting Kane and Coutinho is strengthening my position for game week 37. It could even mean strengthening your position for Game Week 36 because I think Kane is a good pick in Game Week 36, contrary to popular opinion at the moment. So, based on how things pan out this week, I can just sit before 36 and decide, okay, you know what, I'm happy with my team. There's no one I really want in 36. I'll use the free hit in 38 instead of 36. So if I do get in Kane and Coutinho for Havertz and Werner this week, it involves downgrading Ivan Toney to a 4.5 million striker, which I don't mind because I don't mind dead ending one spot in my teams to fit in more big hitters. It's also capitalizing on 35 fixtures as well as 37 fixtures with these moves at the moment. And if you bring in City players, you're capitalizing on 35 and 36 fixtures. But that's what the debate was. What do I prefer? At the moment, I'm leaning towards getting in Kane and Coutinho over Man City players, but I am enticed by that Sterling punt. The problem is now that if I want to get KDB, I need to get in one of those Dutch strikers that I definitely want to play in 36, somebody like a Pookie to facilitate KDB. But I don't think I'm buying a captaincy option. I'm not comfortable captaining a KDB this week. That's why I'm leaning more towards Kane and Coutinho at the moment. That's where I am.
I think those make sense so that you free hit in 36.
Yeah, and it's for a -8, and it's something I want to say. If you're getting in these whole potential captaincy players that are capitalizing 2 or 3 weeks, it's better to get them this week rather than later because the odds of catching a haul lessen. So I think this is probably the last week where I recommend taking a big hit like this and setting your team up for the run-in.
That's a good point.
Don't be afraid to
If you
take a
want to
hit
attack
this
Villa,
week.
it's a good entry point this week.
Same with Spurs.
Same
Leicester at
Spurs,
home.
yeah.
Same with Spurs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do the Q&A.
Cool. We'll do a Q&A for.
Short part today, only for about 50 minutes.
I think it's going to get shorter more and more go on. I mean, we're so deep into the season, there's not much to talk about now. Yeah. Yes, Urban Infinity, Werner honeymoon over. Krish Amesur is asking if Foden's a cap option. No, I'm not confident.
Not confident 100% of a start, my friend. Luke isn't either. We turn to Luke for his opinion. He says he's very likely to start, but not very confident of a start.
Yeah. Karan Sharma is asking, no free hit. Who to sell for Coutinho? JWP or Kai? I'll sell JWP.
Kai.
I just don't see JWP as an asset. Not a big fan.
Yeah. JWP is more of a Zoph type asset. Somebody just had to stick in the team for 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's a discussion we'll have pre-season because there is a strategy in terms of owning a JWP, even if he's
nobody
we
has a
don't even know if he's
patience.
gonna-
Nobody has a patience for it. Like just for 4-5 weeks of blanks, just waiting for that 60 pointer.
Ian's asking, what's the latest news on KDB after he picked up a knock against Madrid? I think his minutes are going to be managed. He's going to be playing through this niggle.
I'm pretty sure he's been training as usual.
Yeah. We have a super chat. Havertz and Mount to Son and Gordon or Ramsey. He owns KDB. What do you think?
Basically, Havertz to Son. I like Son and Gordon, not Ramsey. I think Gordon is much more involved in that play. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that move. Son and Gordon.
Cool. So you don't mind the Mount to Son upgrade if somebody's doing Mount to Son?
Yeah. Mount doesn't feel like an explosive pick to me, and that has always been my primary problem with him.
That said, I didn't own him yesterday. He's so involved, so good at the moment. He's a good set and forget pick for next season.
Yep.
And that's fun. I've been saying that for past few seasons. If Gameweek Wildcard 35, you're 11 players, please. Sorry, we're not that podcast. Take hits to fit in Son, Kane or get Foden, Laporte? That's a tough one.
To get in, I think Foden and Laporte are pretty good, but it again depends on captaincy this week. I don't think there's any wrong with if you want to skip Son and captain Salah this week. I don't think it's a bad play at all.
Yeah. Agreed. Salah does play for sure. That's exactly. Nothing against Salah.
The Son to KDB move in general, I'm not that convinced on.
I'm not either. I think Son is good for 36. Is this the game week to go for double city defense or wait? It is. It's always a good time to go double city defense.
I think you could.
Zoph, what do you think about this Mount to Sterling?
Sterling is a player that I was so tempted to go for him last week also, but just a player that's never been good for me, so I didn't. It's very difficult. Thing is, Mount also, I'm slightly concerned about his minutes this week. I guess if you do Mount to Sterling, then you're pretty much sticking with Sterling through 36, and I think in 36 he does have good potential. Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Rish is asking why we think that despite Spurs players blanking against Brentford and Brighton, they are good assets for Arsenal and Liverpool.
Because I think defensively, on, I think let's say Brentford and Brighton are definitely defensively better than Arsenal, and I think Liverpool, that game, the high line suits them. That's it.
Exactly. It's the matchups and the expected minutes in a double. All your other premium assets are not nailed on for 170 plus minutes. Spurs players are. We
Cristiano,
have a super chat from
yes.
Krishano Das. Cash, Sterling, Coutinho, and Dennis in. He's selling Shar, Son, Kulu, and Wood. Why would you sell Son and Kulu?
Kulu, I'm still on board. I
Yeah.
could get on board selling. I don't mind selling share. I don't mind selling wood. It's only Sun. That's really then I
Yeah.
think Sterling. I would probably try to do that move without the Sun to Sterling switch. Everything else I don't necessarily mind. I don't even mind Dennis for the next few.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of home games coming.
And Cristiano Son is as much of a captaincy option as Sterling. You stick with what you have, in my opinion. Don't go the whole hog to get in Sterling captain.
Yep.
Yeah. Space Otter's asking, he has both Sterling and Havertz. Does he need to take a hit to get Son and Coutinho?
I think you do Havertz to Coutinho.
Yeah, that's about it. I think that's where we are. Whoever you have, you own, you hold.
The value of clarity next week is a big thing because I think even Leicester, I know we didn't touch upon them at all. I think if Leicester go out in the Europa Conference, they have two home games right after that. I think he plays good teams in those two home games if they go out, and I think they will go out to Roma.
Certain Jamie Vardy enters the picture then.
Yes. For your 36, that's something you can really go for if you free hit them.
It's on my mind. Definitely on my mind. Vardy's on my mind. Prithviraj Singh. Kane, Foden, Kulu, White. Why would you sell Kane? That's the first thing. To KDB, Watkins, Gordon, Trent. Have Robbo on double city defense. I don't like the idea of selling Kane, Foden, and Kulu this week. All potential for all three names.
Yeah, I don't like that move.
Cool. I think we'll wrap up. Last question, and then we'll wrap up.
No
I
more
think
super chats,
since,
please, guys.
no more super chats, guys. James to Robbo already have. I am not liking the idea of selling Reece James. He already has Cancelo, Trent, and Cash. So should he do James to Robbo?
No, I'd like to stick with James.
No. Cool. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for your questions and thank you for being with us today. Last 3 pods to go. Any last words off?
Nothing much. Big Man has promised that he'd join us before the last 2 pods, and he has promised that we would have a video before then. Let's wait to see how that plays out. Like and subscribe as always, and thanks for joining us.
See you next week, guys. Take care.